Hello everyone, welcome back to the Fastcast. It's been months, but we're back. Today we're here with DigMC, Leijurv, Bard, and Redstoner 2B2T. Hello everyone.
Hello.
And obviously today we're going to be discussing the funny FitMC video and NOCOM exploit that has recently been made public. So we got some good people here to talk about it that hopefully know a lot about it.
Yep. So I guess we can start with the discovery of the exploit.
Yeah, sure thing. I was not around for the initial discovery, so my knowledge of it is pretty much similar to what Fit talked about in his video. I just know a couple extra things. It was used as a queue skip in early 2018, very, very early 2018, like February.
Do you mean the crash exploit?
No, actually. It was just used to lag the server to the point where people would rage quit or get kicked to skip queue. But I assume it was also used to crash from time to time. And it was only in July that was quite a while later. That was like many months after knowing about it did they actually decide to try and convert it into a core exploit. But again, I don't know too much about this because I was not informed until 2020. This is just secondhand.
Right, yeah. The main thing I'm confused about is, so Fit said in his video that by house reporting like the crash logs to Paper, that Paper went and implemented that patch, but I think Bard told me that it was the patch itself was given to Paper by like Nerds Inc. Is that true? Do you know anything about that?
No, the patch itself was not given to Paper by Nerds Inc. as far as I know.
So it wasn't any hypocrite commit or anything.
Yeah, the thing that Fit said about expecting the obvious fix and like anticipating what the obvious thing the Paper would do, that is true. The simple and obvious thing is to never load a chunk in response to clicking a block, therefore to only reply if it was already loaded. That's pretty simple and obvious, and it is what they did. And the patch was written by one of the maintainers of Paper at the time called Electric Boy, and he directly made the patch to Paper. He didn't make a pull request and ask for comments from other people. He just straight up did it because it was like such a simple and obvious thing. That might have been why not so many people looked at it, is because one of the actual maintainers of Paper just makes a change and you just trust that like they're doing what makes sense.
Okay, alright, that's interesting. So it was basically all on the assumption that the Paper admins would kind of do what they predicted, basically. And then, so from that point, when like the server updated, did they instantly go to like turning it into a Quartz exploit?
Yeah, immediately, like literally within the first day. One thing that Fit intentionally did not mention, he explained in the script draft that was for dramatic effect, which I agree with. It was a very dramatic effect, but it actually, the remote viewing and world download thing existed from literally day one. That's not something that I invented. They already had that. So all the Dipper Nation posts were from before I was involved. That was their own remote downloader, which just clicked literally every block in the chunk from 0 to 255.
Wait, so could you explain a bit, like, to the audience how that whole force loading exploit works? Like,
so as far as I know, we never used forced chunk. Well, sorry, that's not true. I never used forced chunk loading. There was a very simple packet that could force chunk load in the early days. I don't know how much they used it, but I never did. But for the most part, everything that I know about was just with chunks that were loaded by players and not loaded by us.
Right, yeah, but what was the whole exploit that allowed for, one of your guys' clients to see a block that was like 2 million blocks away? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a pretty simple behavior of Minecraft that ghost blocks have to be fixed when you click on them, and this is the patch that basically does that. If you click on a block that you shouldn't be able to hit, that's outside of your reach, the server puts the block back how it was to prevent desync, right? Because the server is not letting you mine it. So what it ought to do is put it back. Otherwise, your client will think there's no block there and the server will think there's a block there and that's desync and it's a ghost block and it's bad. So this is a patch that fixes that in one particular case of far reach, when you're mining something that the server thinks you can't reach. This literally just tells your client, put back this coordinate as grass or whatever. So it literally tells you this coordinate should be this block. And it does that whenever you click a block that's too far away for you to reach, but there's no upper limit to that. You can literally click a block 1,000,000 blocks away, and the server will just tell you what it is, as long as it's loaded.
Oh, wow. Okay, so to get these, like, full world downloads, they would have to have, like, spammed the shit ton out the server.
That's exactly right. We're talking tens of thousands per chunk, every single block in the chunk.
And I mean, I guess this was a lot easier before when there was no packet limit.
That's right. You could literally go as fast as your network connection would let you. Yeah.
They were able to like just spectate like people.
Not really in the sense of like seeing where they are directly, but they could see the entire world. Like obviously you would need a different exploit if you wanted to see entities, but just for the blocks placed in the world, you could just get them one at a time, clicking every single coordinate.
I think it's also important to mention, so how we were doing that was you could use mixin to change how your client rendered chunks with FreeCam, TP to the place in FreeCam, and then we had a module called DL around, which would just mine the blocks around you, and you could essentially view it remotely without having to world download it.
God, that's so scuffed. Oh my god.
Yeah,
okay.
It's pretty fucked, but it worked because you just went to FreeCam, you TP to the place, and you could view what you were tracking, and pretty easy. Very unoptimized though.
Very scuffed, but it worked.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to the whole, like, you know, where your kind of optimization bit comes in a minute and how, like, that made it so much more efficient. But in terms of the actual, like, utilize that, so before they stopped for 6 months and then got you on board, were they just simply, as Fit said, scanning the highways and tracking players as they branched off of the highways?
No, not yet. At that point, it was just the spiral. Literally just a spiral. For, I think it was a bit over a year. Because you didn't need anything more. It works,
Yeah,
right?
you
Like it's
every
like,
single player within whatever distance of spawn that you want to check.
Yeah, the funny thing
Sometimes
is,
they're
in
good
that...
bases, sometimes they're empty fields.
Yeah. In June or, like, July of 2018, when I was, like, basically a brand new fag, I had a cool little skybase going on, like, within 50k, and I actually got griefed by Bubba J, and yeah, now I know probably how that was found.
You know, back then they had long distance ESP in the client that just automatically would draw, I think it was a clown emoji over anyone within like a 100k radius, and it would scan it like once a minute. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, because it could do that so quickly. That's insane. Yeah. Are there any screenshots of that like available?
I wasn't around, so I don't have any myself. I'd have to ask.
Because obviously, like these podcasts, like this bit will get cut out, but like yeah, Vincent can cut out and like paste in images and stuff. So if there's any like images that relates to what we're talking about, that could be useful to show. That would be good.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, I think that's it for like before you went on. But I mean, could you just like tell us a bit about the extent of how like were they collecting? Like, were they making a chords list at that point?
Yeah, they already had like a, you know, heat map. They had a whole like website that showed all the stuff. It went out into the millions. Looked really cool. But that's all outdated data now, so it's not so interesting. Yeah, they would just visit places, fly around, you know, blow stuff up.
All right, so I think we should move on now to when you were brought on board. So, unless there's anything else you want to mention, like prior to that.
I mean, yeah, I don't really know much prior to that, but yeah.
All right, so what was your like reaction when you saw like what these guys had?
Oh my goodness. I had kind of been teased about it for like my recollection is that Ox told me slowly over the course of like an hour and a half, and he would just leak little bits of information. He's like, yeah, we can't tell who's there, but we can tell where someone is. And we were playing like guess and check, where I would like try and guess what was going on, and eventually we got to clicking blocks, and that was an absolutely wild moment. I was like, okay, so that's how you found literally everything.
Yeah. And did they, how fast was Ox to like show you their heat maps and graphs and all the stuff they collected?
Pretty sure that was immediately. I'm pretty hazy on all that. It felt like an hour and a half. It was probably more like 20 minutes, for example. But I don't actually remember. I'm pretty sure he showed me the heat map immediately.
And then, so like, what did he ask of you? Was he then just like, okay,
Yes.
we have this, we need it to do that, or we'd like it to do this, like, please help us?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's like it's rate limited too slow to actually do a spiral. It's no longer like reasonable to try and find people at their base. And I'm pretty sure they already had the idea, right? Like they already had the like concept of tracking people to the base in the first place. It's just I wrote the Monte Carlo particle filter to make that actually happen.
Right, what's this to do with a particle filter?
So the Monte Carlo particle filter is how shall I put this? It is a concept in like not even really machine learning. It's a concept in like robotics actually, where you have like noisy sensor data and you need to like guess at a hidden variable. And the common application is that you are a robot and you're guessing at where you are from your perception of the world through sensors. But I just repurposed the idea to guess where someone else is based on our perception of them, which is a common thing to do. That's not like a new idea. It's just like one of the simplest and most like reliable and understandable things that could work for this use case.
So essentially it took chords that like people were previously at and predicted where it thought they'd be like in a certain time frame.
Yeah. What it does is it creates a whole bunch of guesses about where precisely they are and what precisely speed they're moving, right? So it's like xz, speed in x, speed in z defines each particle, and there were 1,000 particles. And what it would do is once every generation, it would take, which is once a second, it would take like the highest concentration and it would just fire off a guess to 2B2T at that location. And if it's really spread out, it might do a couple more spread around. And then when the responses come back, hit or miss, what it does is the particles that are close to the hits are allowed to reproduce or are more likely to, and the particles that are closer to the misses are more likely to be killed off in the next generation. So if you're getting a whole bunch of hits in a straight line, like with someone walking at a constant speed, after just a couple generations, what's going to happen is like every particle that's still surviving are the ones that correctly guessed the speed and are matching at each generation where the player really is, because the ones that don't match get killed off. And it's like evolution almost. So by like 3 or 4 steps of someone walking at a constant speed, it's keeping up with them with like using like 1 check a second at most.
Oh, right. Because previously, were they just like checking each chunk in like each cardinal direction from them to see which one they'd moved into?
Well, there was no tracking system before that.
So they didn't. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
because I know that's how like the Brownman did theirs, and would that have just been too many packets for like 200 players?
Yeah, it's not efficient enough in packets per second to track everyone.
And Redstone what were Brownmen planning on?
So if we're talking about tracking, so what you've gone into is way beyond me in terms of what algorithms you're using for our tracking.
Like 200 IQ.
Big brain stuff, yeah.
Too much. So basically, I proposed for our tracker, I proposed an idea to Mahan that basically you have a position, that's the player estimated position, right? It would send a packet positive 60 or I think it was 96 blocks, I can't remember, but it would send it in every direction. I think it was like half a render distance, right? And then all the coordinates that return back positive, it would update the player's it updates the player's position to the average of all the packets that came back. So if 3 positions came back, it would average the player's location to the average of those 3 coordinates that the server sent back. it was very, very scuffed, and the position of the player would fluctuate between 100 blocks all the time, but it worked.
Yeah, we actually have the same scuff in this one. Like, literally, you would actually see that players would jump around within one render distance, because there was actually, like, no way of figuring out where within that they actually were, because we were just saving every hit, right? Because even though the system has a good guess about like where they actually are within the render distance, we're saving every hit and we're plotting every hit, and those hits jump all over the place, because basically the particle filter gets a little bit restless, right? It gets bored. So some of the random components start to want to chuck around. It's like, are they really staying still? Maybe they're moving. So kind of checks at the edges to refine its guess about where they actually are. So that's why, like, for example, in the heat map in the teaser trailer, every path looks like it's like a bad video compression thing. Like everything looks fuzzy. That's actually real, right? Like those actually are the guesses that it made, and 1 pixel is 1 chunk, right? So that's just like directly how it works. And by the way, Fit showed in his video some of my very early screen recordings, and one of them, I actually did that precise grid thing. I literally did like a 5x5 grid centered on the last hit, and it would just fire off 25 checks a second every second, and it like literally worked perfectly. And I was like, okay, that was like my first proof of concept. I was like, yeah, this works. Like it actually can track people. Now I need to just make it more efficient. Yeah.
So the algorithm you were using, you did it for efficiency. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, for example, when House lowered the limit even further, we had to come up with something that would use even less. So it turns out that most of the time, people are not really moving, right? People are like stationary at their base, literally a majority of the time staying within 1 render distance. So we came up with this customization called the stationary filter. It's not anything fancy. It just is like, if 1 chunk can explain every hit from the last 30 seconds, we decide that they must be standing in that chunk and they're not moving. So we switch to a stationary mode where we just back off and like relax, and we go all the way down to 1 check every like 10 seconds or 8 seconds or something. So, and if the particle filter is unsure about where they are, it can go all the way up to 10 checks a second. And if it loses them entirely for 5 seconds, it'll do 120 checks a second to try and find them again. And so
I was just gonna say, and the algorithm can like balance this out to make it so each like account isn't sending more packets than it is able to.
That's right. So basically, from the absolute easiest of someone standing still to the absolute hardest of someone moving super erratically, it ranges over 1000x difference in speed of how many checks per second it uses. It can go as little as like 0.1 and as high as over 100.
So yeah, you really could like track someone if they were like boat phasing at 1000 kmh and shit.
Yes, we actually have some very interesting artifacts in the full-size nether heat map of straight lines pointing out into the millions, clearly not using any tunnel, clearly not actually flying raw nether, that are clearly boat phases that last for literally millions of blocks nether side. It's pretty cool.
What's like the furthest out you've seen someone go to that isn't the world border?
If I remember correctly, there are a couple splotches on the map at like 10 million, 20 million nether.
Wow, Jesus, that's crazy.
Were they bases?
We don't know. We never actually did world downloading in the nether, as far as I know.
All that effort to just still be tracked.
Yeah.
All of that traveling.
About that, you didn't do downloading in the nether because you're bandwidth constrained? Is that why?
No, because the nether was just so boring. We used to try and do clustering. I could literally talk for hours about just the data processing and clustering system, which is what decides like what's a base and what's just someone passing through on their way to something else. Like, we don't want to world download a highway, even though a ton of people are on the highway, right? It turns out that running any of that stuff in the nether, it just got so confused, because the nether is like one big hotspot. It's like
8 times smaller on both axes. Like, everything is different. We just, like, and there's nothing interesting there, so we just never actually ran real data processing on the nether data.
But then I swear so alright, so this was I know you just kind of mentioned it. How did you guys determine if, like, a spot on the map is a base or a height? Because, like, obviously you can see on the heat maps, like,
Yeah.
it kind of obviously, but how does, like, your program, like, determine that?
So, put simply, okay, so some of the earlier versions were really simple. It was just like, if you get 3 hits in one chunk, that counts or something. But eventually what we settled on by the end was based on time. We called it the occupancy duration, which is just when you're looking at a certain area, sum up all the ranges of time when someone was there. And there are a lot of, like, complicated little gotchas here. For example, we don't want to be biased in favor of the Monte Carlo system and against the stationary system. Even though the stationary system is using 10 times less checks, a base is still a base if someone's standing still versus walking around, right? So what we ended up doing was keeping track of ranges of time when we think someone was there at each chunk, and then we merge all those ranges. Like, we don't add them up, we actually merge the ranges of time so that we get a combined, like, timesheet, basically, of when someone was at this render distance, give or take, like, 200 blocks. And once that hits 90 minutes, that's what we call a base. That's it.
Oh, so that was the threshold, huh? Okay.
90 minutes, that's right.
So actually, I was going to ask, because this relates, sorry, I'm not making any sense. I was about to ask, because for the past few months, as that I've known, there has been, like, a exploit. Whenever I've gone to, like, a stash or something, I've tried to go in and out, like, as quickly as possible. Would that mean, like, it's safer?
Yeah, in theory, but it can add up over time.
And then did you guys, so you have this big list of chords and then you just manually, like, check them one by one, right?
Yep. Well, not quite manually. There's still a couple more steps after that, but once it decides it's a base, that's when the world downloader kicks in. And then there are still a couple...
So that's automatic as well?
We're still multiple steps away from an actual human having to get involved. Yeah, at that point, it kicks off the world downloader, which then generates the area terrain from 2B2T's seed. It gets the height map. It picks a handful of locations in each chunk where it's going to think a base probably could be. It makes a couple of very safe assumptions, which is that bases commonly disturb the natural surface of the terrain. Sometimes you build up in the sky without touching the ground. Sometimes you build deep underground, but those are the exceptions and not the rule. It fires off, I think it's like 3 or 4 completely random checks just in case there's something up in the sky or down underground, but most of the time it's on the surface. And the algorithm for this is as simple as it can be. If it checks a block and it is different from vanilla terrain, it checks its neighbors and just repeat. And that is literally it.
Okay. And obviously, and with this new, like, packet limit, how long would that take to do, like, one chunk?
It would take a while. You can see in Fit's video that it takes, like, minutes and minutes to just get the beginning of a base on the surface when he was showing that one around the river. That's actually, like, fully real time as I'm watching it do it. Again, I started with that built into my client so I could watch what it was doing. Then eventually it became running on a server and I wasn't watching anymore. And yeah, it was literally just finding differences from what we get from 2B versus vanilla. And if we see a difference, that's interesting. Maybe the neighboring blocks are also different. And as such, if a chunk is unmodified, we just run the initial checks and nothing more. And if the chunk is very modified, we slowly work our way through the entire build, like one block at a time, like an expanding paint bucket fill, you know?
So yeah, downloading a chunk with the last packet limiter. So basically what happened was towards the end of June, he implemented another packet limiter, which brought it from 10 packets per tick to 1. And downloading a 60,000 block chunk with that packet limiter takes about 54 minutes.
Couldn't you have just, like, generated half of it, like, in pillars, and there was, like, one, like, empty pillar next to each pillar of blocks?
Yeah, there are a lot of techniques that you can use. We were kind of doing it like the poor way. We're doing the absolute minimal number per chunk because we're trying to do this to every base simultaneously, keeping up with real time as builders place blocks. So we never actually downloaded full chunks anymore. It just never was worth it. And around, I think the peak was like February to May of this year, we were averaging around, I think it was like 3,000 blocks a second downloaded, like 24/7, like averaged across server
Jesus.
resources.
How many accounts was this spread over?
Dozens. Literally dozens.
Like multiple dozens.
I'd say around 25 was like the peak.
Oh my god, okay. Jesus Christ, okay. Wow, that's crazy. And they all communicated with your one, like, server that told each one what to do. Wow.
Yep, that server got beefy. Had to get new hardware a couple times. New SSD, new RAM.
How much bandwidth
paying
did
for all the electricity? The bandwidth was actually not so much because, well, I shouldn't say that. Back in 2018, they were using literally terabytes. House probably has a deal with his hosting provider to get cheaper bandwidth at bulk, but if he didn't, they cost him tens of thousands of dollars just from spamming this packet so much, so often.
Wow. And so them, like, using this exploit to spam packets, this was lagging the server, right then, surely?
Absolutely, yeah. Lagged it to the point where House was, like, making complaints to Paper about, like, how are they lagging my queue server while standing still and clearly doing nothing?
Trolling.
So he's losing thousands of dollars?
Yeah.
And
When you do out the
and not
math,
once he
go for it.
and not once he just looks into the packets that you're sending and wonders, why?
I mean, that's
why?
what I can we leave that to the end?
my God.
Leave that to the end. I do want to talk about that.
Okay.
But yeah, fuck. Where were we? Yeah. What were we talking about before that? The fucking
C packet player try use item on block.
just like the amount of counts and down. All right. So what was the next step then before humans saw the base?
Oh yeah. So all this gets stored in a massive database of like every hit from the tracker and every block from the downloader. By the end, the tracker table is around 3 billion and the blocks table is around 10 billion rows. And I'm just talking like X, Y, Z, what the block is and when it happened, like 10 billion rows of that. So then we just run some reports, queries, like web user interfaces and stuff. So one that I ran all the time was, among everything that we got in the last week, sum up the number of chests at each base and give me like the top 10. And then I would view each one, see how it looked, and send someone over there to scout it out, maybe steal it.
Oh, okay. And was there did you like ever get a false reading?
It's not, I mean, in some sense, yes, but really, it's not really possible to get a false reading. Like 2BZ never lies about what block is where, but it's possible, like, by the time we get there, it's already been griefed. Or, like, the person who we tracked there was actually a griefer, and we got a world download right before they griefed it, for example. That actually happened a number of times with stashes. And there are a couple other things that can happen, like, I traveled over 1 million out for a massive looking stash, but it turned out it was just a new friend who had made a chest and was just putting every kind of block that they could collect in every chest, and they didn't even have shulkers. It was a massive waste of time.
Trolling, okay. Yeah.
Yep, that's part of what made me decide to give cords to other people to...
Right. And can you name these people? Obviously Dectonic's one of them, but...
Dectonic, I'm not gonna lie, was kind of like the main guy. Shout out to my guy Dectonic for traveling to probably, I don't even know how to estimate it, probably over 500 cords I sent him all across the map.
Dectonic exploit on top, boys.
Yeah, over the course of like 14, 15 months, he went to like all of them.
Now, can we talk about the Dectonic controversy?
I don't know much about the Dectonic controversy. I don't know, man. But sure, go for it.
Because we got so many different sources of information. We got Ox saying that he didn't have access to any part of the exploit, and then he's obviously been talking about himself using it or whatever to me and to everyone else.
Yeah, he claims he's had the exploit all along.
Can we get an official verdict on what Dectonic had access to?
Oh my god. This is a your balloon was green moment.
Yes, it was very green.
Your balloon is green.
Tectonic did not have direct access to any of the like databases or websites or anything, but through me in practice he basically did, because like I basically gave him basically all the big bases by chest count, and if he asked me to look up a player by username, I'd just send him where our best guess was as to where that player was. So it's as if, you know, right? It's like
okay.
It doesn't really matter.
He effectively had it, but he didn't actually like technically have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And were there any times you got a reading of like something that you like just never leaked just because you were impressed by it and didn't want it to get like fucked?
Oh, absolutely, all the time. In fact, I'd say the majority of the bases on that, like, you know, top X list that I'd look at once every couple days or weeks, the majority of them I wouldn't send because it's like a stash at a base, and like, I mean, all else being equal, I mean, it's better to just steal stash.
Did you just send him codes to bases that had swastikas at them? Because that's what he's
yes.
For a while he was saying that he only griefed bases with like swastikas at them.
And I'm pretty sure that stayed true for an extremely long time, probably like over a year, I think. I'd send stashes with no qualms, but for an actual base, they'd need to have a pinwheel or something for me to, you know, send it over.
Well, there you go, kids. Don't build funny logos at your bases.
That's right.
Oh shit! I have like 20 fucking of them.
Tectonic is coming,
and it still hasn't been griefed. Yes, that's the base I was talking about earlier, which we built specifically to not be found by this. So our main base for 2020 was built inside of a lava cast that's like 400 by 400 blocks.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This thing would have slurped up the entire lava cast because that's all different terrain than vanilla, and it would have like punched all the way through into the middle, and it would have counted up all the blocks of each type, tallied it, and if there were enough chests or shulkers, it would have come up in the list.
Would 2,000 chests trigger your algorithm in any way?
I generally would look at every base with over 100 chests.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm awaiting Mr. Dectonic to show up.
Leijurv, for LARP video's sake, I think it would just be funny to ask, you guys did have access to Elysium, right?
I actually don't know. I don't think so. When I looked back at the data, we only had it literally hours before the grief in terms of world download.
Wow, okay, that's surprising.
Yeah, Dectonic told us a couple months ago that he had the coordinates to the temp base for Elysium, but not the base itself. So he said 100,000 away is the chords he had.
That's possible. Yeah.
So obviously you had access to this like big, you know, zoomable heat map, whatever, that you could see anything. Did you just sometimes like go on there and like download some chords just for fun, just to see what's up?
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, the whole system starting like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I started working on it, the whole thing was on rails. Like I never had the ability to tell it, go look at these coordinates, go download this place, go follow this particular location, check this location. It just kind of did its own thing. I just want to make it fully automated. So I never actually told it to do anything, basically.
Did you ever like not even use it to find like new fags at spawn to go fuck with them or anything like that?
Yeah, Fit actually mentioned that in his video. The very last day, the very last evening, when it was actually right after Redstoner told me that House had been emailed, if I remember correctly. We kind of told the Masons everything, and we just kind of had like a last night of fun, like the orchestra playing on the Titanic while it sinks. Basically, we ran a full sweep of spawn.
Was that the day we put the mod public?
Probably, yeah. That was the evening of Ace's YouTube post.
Yeah.
We went on a counterclockwise sweep around spawn, and we killed off everyone. I think it was like between 10k and 30k out.
Yeah, I did something similar. It was fun.
Oh, in the VC with all the DL boys, that was fun as.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can start talking about the brown men part in this all now. I'm fairly sure. So where does obviously I know the story, but Redstone and Bard,
the low
when
energy
does the funny
effort. Well, Bud doesn't really have much involvement in how it was found, but basically, around the middle of, I think it was 2020, middle of 2020. Steve was. I have got chat logs of it somewhere, but Steve was just doing his thing, looking through code. He found the ability to load chunks with the what's the packet? Use block?
C packet player try use item on block.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, that's actually the one that we used.
Oh, fancy that.
Yeah, that was the one. So it was the one that returned a block update as well. I think it returned a block update, if I remember correctly.
I think it returned 2 if you just did a normal right click on the side. That's actually
something like that. Anyway, so we were scheming this fucking like thing because this was before we knew about sending digging packets. We were just thinking of just loading chunks, scanning 4 random positions on the surface of the chunk, checking for non-organic blocks that have been changed, and then moving on to the next chunk. Just like loading chunk, checking next. Like really, really slow. We never got anywhere in actually developing a mod for it, but it was just something we had. It got patched a few months after we got it, and I'm pretty sure you would have the date of that. When did that get patched?
I don't know. We never actually used that in an automated fashion, so I wouldn't know.
Well, Ox said end of or late mid 2020, something like that. It got house ended it. Then I suppose they just started looking through the other packets. Marhan found the abort digging, and I suppose we just started going from there. He made a spiral like you guys did. Well, not you guys, but like which one of the nerds made the original spiral?
Oh, frickin'.
Yeah. So we had that for like a couple months, I suppose, just fucking around. Because we thought 10 packets per tick, oh, this is plenty fast. Not knowing that you guys had basically unlimited fucking... we just put... Yeah, keep going.
I like, it literally was over 10,000 packets a tick in certain scenarios. If I remember correctly, Ox once went on GeForce Now for the sole purpose of getting a bit more bandwidth to like do something with it.
So you figured out 2B had gigabit, is that correct?
I can't say off the top of my head. I wasn't there. I've just heard stories, but what they found was that when you do out the math of how much 2T's hosting provider charges for bandwidth, the amount that they charged house was in the tens of thousands of dollars.
That is extremely funny.
Now, that might not be true because 2T probably has like a bulk rate and like all these things, and it's probably not that simple, but it's just funny.
It just depends on the deal he has with his provider, right?
Yeah.
So February 2020 is when I submitted my, I suppose, idea to Marhan for the tracker, which was the 4 position around the player estimated position, and then update.
February 2020?
2021.
Okay. Phew.
So yeah, after we'd been fucking around with Spiral for a few months, when we decided, oh yeah, we've got like a powerful exploit, let's actually do something with it. We start doing that. We get the tracker working start of March, some shit like that. The highway scanner as well, because, we just started collecting data on the highways, which is completely pointless, but we just thought it was cool. Through April, I was busy with fucking around at Spawn with those events. May, we were just benchmarking our tracker on Fit, which is the whole reason we were tracking him, is just to see how easily our tracker could, lose its target. We added a new feature to the tracker, which once it loses the target, just started spiraling around it until it found it. Very, very ooga booga caveman logic, but it worked.
Dude, when I saw that code, I swear to God, I had to get a puke bag.
I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 lines.
The fact that you had 9 months to just create that just gives me a headache.
Yes. Yeah. Then end of May, we kind of just not doing much. Along comes June. I suppose we were just tracking single people all the time. We had multiple accounts on, because our client could only track one person at a time. We just had 3 or 4 accounts online just tracking different people. We'd have a spare account as well that was just finding new targets, and then another account that was downloading bases. And then we started working on multi-tracker. Mahan was the only one doing the development on this, so he was kind of just by himself. Steve is...
Yeah, he had a lot of workload, and there was other stuff that was happening in his life.
Steve doesn't really do anything, he's just lazy, he just finds this shit and then kind of just gives it to us to play with. And then along comes July, and then the whole leaky starts with K-Band stuff.
Yeah, don't get to that just yet.
We won't get to that yet.
So how, do you know what progress you had on multi-track? Like, how close were you to actually, realizing that?
He hasn't sent me the version he was working on, but from what I heard is he made it... Basically, his solution to this was just to spawn multiple processes of the single tracker. In whatever the fuck that means. Just duplicate
just
the
max
code.
out the packet limit.
Well, we were running at 10 packets per tick for most of that time, and the single tracker we had ran about 0.4 packets per tick. I think something like that. It was pretty efficient. Obviously not as efficient as what Leijurv had, but it did its job.
Okay, and back to Leijurv now. Do you know when you guys and the nerds started suspecting that other people had the exploit, or did you not at all? Or
Honestly, I don't fully remember. The first thing that I remember hearing that I was like, oh shit, was when Ox was saying, if I remember correctly, some people from Brown, might have been you, Redstoner, came to him and were basically like, we know you have the same thing and you're using it to some effect. Do you want to team up?
Okay, so this is after it was already getting leaked. So that was exploit was gone at that point.
That was me.
I'm not sure about that. It might have been a bit. When was it that you offered Ox basically like that? Like you would provide prio accounts and he'd provide.
That was a week or 2 ago.
Okay, that was before Ace went on a spurg.
I thought that was June
that was a week or 2 ago. So that was before Ace went on his.
It went from completely private
rampage
to basically public in 2 weeks. It was that quickly.
Yeah. All right. So I was a bit behind the curve on that, which makes sense because it's you guys who were involved with the people who were thinking about leaking. But I was not on top of that.
A lot of late nights there. Trying to stop information from spreading, but it was a lost cause at the beginning.
Leijurv, having known about the method for all this time, did you ever think to yourself this shit's gonna be figured out at some point? It's kind of hiding in plain sight in a way. Did that ever cross your mind?
I was genuinely shocked that House had not passed yet. I was in disbelief for a while. Yeah, when he rate limited it in May of 2020, the rate limit from 22 packets per tick to 9-ish, I was I was shocked. I was like, how could he possibly see this, see our accounts, see what they're doing, and just rate limit it and not patch the issue? And even just recently, literally this month, he rate limits it even further to the point where you get kicked for vanilla breaking blocks. And he's like, and only then does he actually patch it properly. Like, yeah, he rate limited down to like, it was like less than 1 packet a tick for a while, and then he reverted it. And that's what's shocking to me, right? Because I have very strong suspicions that in May 2020 he put in that packet limit directly looking at our bots and what we were doing. It's basically, I have a suspicion that is not shared by some of the other members of the team. This is only my personal suspicion. Others disagree. But I think that Oneb's post on the top of the subreddit where he called out the AFK accounts, like within, like, I think it was just a couple hours, House removed the post from the subreddit, and he tightened the packet limit to repeatedly kick those accounts.
Wow, so Zeroneb's post actually did do, like, something.
I genuinely think that the events are connected, and that Oneb's early post in May caused us to absolutely get, like, wrecked by House. But the weird thing is that Oneb was like, they must be, like, core exploiting, blah, blah, they must be doing some sort of exploit. House looks at what we're doing, evidently sees that we're spamming packets, evidently decreases the limit, does not look at what we're spamming, does not think about what we're doing. Just like, I genuinely cannot fathom what House knew and when. Like, nothing makes sense.
It's a big, that's a big concern to a lot of people, because, like, people are starting to wonder, like, was House complacent in it? Like, surely he can't see all these packets and just assume it's a way for these people to crash the server. Like, surely you wouldn't just think it's a lag exploit for this whole time.
Yeah, like, House, like he definitely was complacent. I don't think he was complicit. Like, at some point we were spamming a different packet for like signs or something, and it would like log in the server log, and he patched that within like a day, because it spams his server log, so he just made it a kick instead of a log. Because
he was like, oh shit, these guys are looking for signs. Yeah, and
it's like, it makes no sense, and it's the same accounts. He's like, oh, XE9 again, spamming a different packet. Maybe that was a smokescreen. Maybe he just thought that we were messing around, because we made the sign packet be like the comments, like join the Vortex Coalition today, join vo.co, because everyone spams that sign, so we decided to spam that sign too. So we might have just blended in. Might have thought, oh, they're just anti-AFKing by packet spamming or something. I don't know.
Which still is kind of strange, because even so, with other exploits where he just sniffs the packets of people, he pretty relatively quickly finds out what they're doing and, acts upon that.
I mean, unless he was only looking at the logs that the server was receiving and not the logs that the server was sending.
Maybe it was like 2 different people. Like 2 house masters, probably.
That's also possible. You're like, maybe the guy who moderates the subreddit is not the same guy who looks at the server, and it's just a total coincidence that those things happen on the same day. I have no idea.
Would you presume it's just House's incompetence that's allowed this to happen, with his lack of knowledge about, I suppose, how the server works? Because it's been known for a while he hires other people to do his dirty work for him.
Yep, so on that point, I would point to the massive packet spam in 2018 and 2019. We genuinely believe that he was paying thousands of dollars in bandwidth overages suddenly, and he didn't even, like, look. Like, he's like, oh, data's being spammed, whatever, rock brain, I'm just gonna pay for it, right? Like, he never actually put in a limit until over a year later of constant spamming at maximum speed. Like, I genuinely think, like, there's some, like, maybe this is, like, some inefficient bureaucracy, like, ownership of, like, 2B2T. I just have nothing, like, I have no mental model of what the management of the server is like that would have resulted in all these things happening that have happened in a way that makes any sense at all. Like, it's just utter incompetence.
I mean, in general, like, in, like, Hackerman opinion, like, would you say House is incompetent when it comes to running the server and, like, patching exploits? Like, do you think that he does just outsource the development of patches?
I mean, in this specific case, definitely. Like, he has patched, like, he patched this, like, within, like, a couple days of getting, like, all the info, but, like, I wouldn't say this is someone at the top of their game of running a Minecraft server. Like, they are, like, it's up, right? And like that's impressive in and of itself that it's been up for this long. But like the exploits and like the dupes and everything that have existed for so long kind of make me think that they just don't really care that much. As long as the server's running, like, it's not an issue. As long as there isn't riots in the streets, as long as the TPS stays high, nothing happens.
Do you want to compare that to John's response to this?
I can't really say. I don't really know what John's response was, so maybe you can say that.
I can kind of fill you in. So basically, a very intelligent player with the exploit, I think you know who I'm talking about, decided to go on to Old Fag and utilize it, right, to find some bases. Within hours, I'm eating something right now. Within hours of using it, found 3 bases, went and griefed them. John already sees stuff going on in chat, sees people talking about it, etc. You know, being actively involved in the community. Goes to this specific player's packet log, looks through them, finds the packet, patches it within hours, and puts the patch on GitHub. This is all done in less than 12 hours. And then it's patched on Old Fact. That's it. Done.
And what date was this?
This was 2 to 3 days before it went public. So probably the 12th of July. But yeah, that's the difference between a competent admin.
It's really fucking fucky, the whole Housemaster situation. Like, it's really impossible to say like how the management works.
And I mean, someone from the outside view, without having, you know, a conversation, without having contact with nerds, would probably come to the conclusion that House was somehow involved with allowing this to go on, which was something that I brought up when I first talked to Redstone, when it was leaked to me by K. Benster. That's what I was talking to him about. So, yeah.
I mean, obviously now we're just going into, like, theoretics, but I would say that surely if he knew about this exploit, like, he's competent enough to know that a group of players having access to basically every base on the server could be fucking, like, detrimental to the community, like, and that would lose him money. Like, I don't see how he couldn't have considered that. So, like, it must be the fact that he just didn't check what packets the server was, like, sending to these clients and actually diving deep into it. He just saw big packet number, this is lagging the server, they're using a lag exploit, right?
He just joined Nerds Inc. I don't know what to say.
House is in the riot chat?
Wait, really?
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, that would be troll.
Or am I kidding?
No comment. Yeah. Okay, so actually no, there's 2 final things I want to talk about. One's from Leijurv's perspective and one's from Redstone's perspective. So Leijurv, Nerds Inc. now have, you know, I know you might not be able to comment on this, but Nerds Inc. now have, you know, thousands of bases of thousands of players across the 2B community. Like, what now? Is there any plan to, like, go on a griefing spree? Can you assure the community that their bases are safe, that even though nerds have cords to them? Like, what's going on? Like, who's gonna be griefed?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, it may not look like it, but I've been relatively restrained in the leaking of actual bases as opposed to just stashes. We have been on a stash stealing spree, probably will still be on a stash stealing spree with whatever still exists in the coming, you know, couple days before everyone moves everything. Still have no plans to do a mass leak of bases. I'm not the only one with access to the database, so I can't promise anything as a 100% guarantee, but there are no plans on my part or anyone's part that I know of to do like a mass leak of a ton of bases or anything, or even really any bases at all. Things that actually look impressive, that is. If you just have like a, you know, shit shack, I'm not gonna like go out of my way to prevent that from being leaked. I'm talking about actual bases.
Yeah. So there's no, because obviously some people have been like, oh shit, Nerds Inc. are going to release their database, but you can confirm that no, that's never going to happen.
That is not in the cards. We have done certain controlled leaks. For example, like the entire world download history at one base, for example, has been obviously there are time lapses, right? Like in Fit's video and everything that were generated from that data by third parties. So like certain things that have already been griefed, yeah, for sure, we'll leak the dump of the full history of the base from construction to the grief and all that, and it's like super cool and makes a time lapse and it's all amazing and cool. But for bases that still exist, currently no plans to do a large-scale leak.
Alright, I think many people are going to be glad to hear that, to be honest. It would be cool if you guys could, like... Would you guys be, like, down to do this? If obviously not random new fags, but, like, people that you know in the community, friends, came to you and was like, yo, I had this base in, 2020, its chords are this, however, I never got to download it. Would you guys be able to send me a download? Is that something you guys would, like, be able to do?
Not in the normal sense of a world download. We have data in a really weird format. As you can imagine, it's just click by click. So it's not something you can just load up in a normal client. I mean, maybe we could make some processing to result in that. That's perfectly possible. We just haven't done that. Yeah, that is perfectly possible. If you have built a base from it was more like April-ish, from April 2020 to early June, we more likely than not have a world download updated at 30-minute intervals of the base. That's actually the majority of the data that we have is the world downloads and not the actual tracking.
How much data is of just, like, tracking?
Tracking is about 3 billion rows. If I remember correctly, it's a couple hundred gigabytes, 200, 300 gigabytes of actual data. The blocks data is 10 billion rows, and it's about, I think, 600 gigabytes of just the data. And also, like, associated ancillary, like, indexes and stuff make it over a terabyte for just blocks, and the overall size of the entire database is, I think, just under 2 terabytes.
Okay. Alright, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, I think it's really good to hear that you guys aren't gonna, like, go on a leaking or griefing spree, at least not anytime soon.
No. To be clear, we are going on a griefing spree, but it's just
but not
stashes.
Okay, so you're trying to unfuck the economy, basically.
Yes, sure.
Everyone in this VC can enjoy that, especially Redstone.
I very much enjoy your work because you're just making me more money.
It makes him more money.
I mean, it's just how the cards were laid down that we managed to autonomously track almost every item shop except yours. I promise it's not favoritism, even though it may look like it.
I hope you enjoyed those 10 stashes that you that I generously let you take.
By mutual agreement.
Alright, so I think one of the last things to talk about now is the, like, big spooky downfall of the exploit. So how did it get leaked? Obviously this is more for Redstone to answer, but how did it go from Mahan developing it to the whole server having the code to it?
Well, funnily enough, we weren't the first. It didn't come from us first. It was so apparently, from what I've been told, some 2B players outside of Nerds Inc. and Brownman had it, and they had it from 9B9T. Basically, there was a developer for 9B9T who made a client called Family Fun Pack, I think is what it was called. And
that's right.
One of the modules had this. I think it had I've not looked into it, but I think it had a spiral and a tracker. Am I mistaken there?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And
this was made public?
So yeah, this was public on 9B9T for an unspecified amount of time. I haven't been informed.
And no one chose to use it on 2B?
Nobody tested on... nearly nobody. You explain.
Well, okay, it wasn't public. There was a little bit more to that. So in February, it was a public repo. So the repository on GitHub was public, but no one had accessed it. It didn't have any stars, but it was essentially just a core exploit, just left public for 2B. And since February, it's pretty Incredible.
So a few 2B players, Memory and I think a couple others that I can't remember. They hit me up last week after they found out about the whole everything going public, and it's talked about what they were doing with it. So a very, very small amount of people got that from 9B and were using it on 2B. You know, but that wasn't really what caused all this issues. It was one of our members, well, two of our members actually, who helped us early 2021 or late 2020, I think, is when they found out about it. They were in the group chat where we were finding all this stuff. They were kind of inactive for like 6-7 months after we found it, so we just kind of assumed we kind of just wrote them off, not an issue. But they came back towards the end of June, and they were just going, you know, full spurg about, you know, the state of 2B. Fuck 2B2T, you know, 2B2T is such a waste of time, etc., etc. You know, whatever the fuck I can't explain what their motives were. But they started leaking stuff that they knew, such as the RAM filler dupe, which is, you know, completely useless dupe, but I guess it works. So there you go. World Freezer was published on Reddit. They put some more information in the Reddit post about a coordinate exploit where that involved, quote, sending packets to the server and seeing what the response was. This comment got deleted a couple minutes or hours after, I'm not sure, but a few people did see it, such as Romtech and CZ, who are also one of our friends. They ended up finding the exploit about a week later by just looking through every single packet that sent coordinates to the server and, you know, just brute forcing finding a bot. And then one of the people that our old members gave it to was a Imperium member, and what a joy he was to work
Rookie
with.
mistake, giving it to an Imperium member. Rookie mistake.
Yes, big brain. I started my stopwatch. I was like, let's see how many fucking hours this lasts. And to my surprise, it lasted 6-7 days. How long did it last, Bart? Between when he got given it and when he leaked it?
Yeah, a couple days. Too long. Suspiciously long for an Imperium
suspiciously long
exploit.
amount of time. I tried what I could to, you know, not get it to go public, but, you know, my efforts were basically pointless. It got leaked out on YouTube. The block update thing got leaked in his video. And then he started, you know, he got it patched on OldFag, which then John knew about it, and then John uploaded a patch. So now the exploit's public, because the patch is public on GitHub. So we're like, okay, we're completely fucked now. So we get a little version of our mod that's, you know, we just put a hardware ID lock on it. We open up our old dupe store, where we sold the old dupe mod, and then we just started selling it $20 a pop. Just to everyone. We just opened the fucking floodgates to see what the fuck everyone could do with a coordinate and an exploit.
Epic exit scam.
We knew it had hours to go, so we're just like, fuck it, let's just see what happens when everybody has the exploit. We sold it
and
to
how much money did you make out of this?
We made 700 USD.
You're kidding.
Not kidding. There was one person who bought it for $200, and I don't know how the fuck that happened. Yeah, they bought it through Shulker Road for $200.
It was also the most viewed item on eBay because EXO just DDoSed the fucking...
That was Shulker Road, yeah, that was an auction done on eBay.
Oh yeah, okay, another funny thing, Leijurv. EXORAM put it on eBay and then DDoSed the eBay listing. So it ended up something like 300,000 views in like 1 hour.
and that's how it happened. Yeah. Damn.
It's fucking retarded.
At that time, I was just sending it to everyone, all of my friends, and I was heckling all the new fags I knew. I was like, as soon as I saw someone joining the server, I just messaged them if they wanted to buy the exploit, and then heckle them down. Like, if they said no to $100, I'd be like, alright, 50. If they said no to that, I'm like, 20. Then, yeah. We made too many sales.
And then people started obviously because the mod wasn't obfuscated whatsoever, so literally anyone could just take the fucking modules. They put it straight onto GitHub, and then they started spamming the fucking GitHub link in the shop server.
Like, I made...
Which was so fucking funny.
I also made the hardware ID thing in like 5 minutes, so it didn't even work properly. We were under such a time crunch that I made like this fancy little fucking thing.
So every time someone bought it, we had to recompile the mod with the new hardware ID.
Oh my god.
This is unobfuscated code. So literally this guy, anyone who received it could literally just open it in fucking their thingo and just edit it out. Just like that.
Great. Good shit. Well, yeah. That's how it ended.
And then 16 hours after the Nerds video went out, I think is when it got patched.
Yeah. Who made the Nerds video, Leijurv?
Sorry?
Who made the Nerds video about with the Tron music? That was really awesome.
That was all me. I've actually been planning that for many months. I actually might send it at some. I might send it. I have a unlisted video on my channel.
Ooh, hell yeah! Yeah,
2020, where I have exactly that with even more Tron Legacy songs. Making all that like sync up, and like I spent literally hours tweaking the color scheme, the timing.
I got literal I got chills. It worked. It was good.
I respect the dead.
Yeah, it was such an I remember waking up. Someone DM'd it to me on Discord and was like, bro, check this out. I watched it and I was just like, oh, we're fucked. And it was funny.
Leijurv, I don't think you understand. People were flipping the fuck out when that video dropped. I was just in some Discord servers. People were just going fucking mental. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Dude, the Verl Discord server, the private Verl one as well, and then the fucking Bubba J image of all of Verl's back.
That was good.
So, the most important question, is this a new era of 2B2T without the all-seeing eye?
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Okay, yeah, sick.
Who said it's gone?
Oh, yeah, is there a new one?
One interesting thing is that if there ever is another exploit found in the future to tell if a chunk is loaded, we already have like industrial strength infrastructure to immediately exploit it to the highest degree. So if there ever is another packet that accidentally reveals if an arbitrary chunk is loaded, it's game over.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I think that's everything then. Is anything else anyone wants to say?
Why is Babaj always online?
Babaj!
Why is Jewish banker at my stash?
He's always online because he has nothing better to do.
Actually, Bubba J was one of the 2 accounts that we brought out really far in the nether to be the AFK nether accounts. But that's a boring answer. The real answer is that, yeah, he's online because he has nothing better to do.
Oh, so who was it that made XE_9 skin fuck zero in there?
That was me. That was actually.
Nice.
I actually have a friend who's Swedish, so I actually had to ask him what is a colloquial way in Swedish to say like "fuck off," but it can't use any of like the special characters. It can't use a squiggle or like a 2 dots. It needs to be all normal Latin characters, and we eventually settled on stick och brin neb.
Okay, now Leijurv, I have the question that it's been asked for years and years and years. Everybody wants to know the answer to. All right, you ready for it?
Oh dear.
Why is XZ_9 always online?
It's because XE9 is one of the NOCOM bots that has been court exploiting the server.
For the entire time. Oh, actually, do you know anything about the 5def account? Was that Nerds related?
5def? No.
5def?
Yeah, it was like an admin account that was seen like vanishing in front of like 2 players.
That sounds wild. First I've heard of that.
What the fuck? Yes.
You don't remember this from like late last year? Like if you tried messaging it, it would return with like an error.
What the fuck are you talking about, dude?
There's like footage of this.
Oh, what's this about tracking what's this about tracking house in spectator mode? Because spectator mode, I'm assuming, was loading chunks.
Yes, anything that loads chunks can be tracked. So if you're like invisible, god mode, spectator, we have a little bit of very interesting data of certain movements around our bot locations where we're certain no one is.
Yes.
Right? Like I'm literally talking 20 million off axis nether.
Yeah. Now, we noticed
there's interesting data.
we had a little thing on our client which also allowed us to check around our accounts. And while we were at the stash at Avalisium, my thinger went off as there being a player nearby, but there was no one online at the base. And I got a little tripped out by that, and I was wondering if you guys experienced the same thing, which obviously you're saying you did.
Yep. We have experienced similar things of some invisible chunk loading thing, might be a housemaster in spectator mode, flying around some of our far out outposts.
Spooky.
These are the true Herobrine stories.
Yeah. True tales.
True tales.
Okay, right, before this descends into meme hell, Vincent, do you want to outro this shit?
Alright, the most important question for everyone. What is your most favorite type of cheese?
Oh, fuck.
Cheddar?
Fucking white Costello, dude. That shit's bussin'.
Whatever the fuck they
I think
put in
that's
mac
cheddar,
and cheese, that shit is delicious.
Macaroni?
Macaroni, yeah.
Wait.
The packaged shit that's probably just all chemicals.
Nice.
That shit is delicious.
Alright, well, thank you guys for being on. And, yeah. Goodbye, everyone.
Based.
Epic gamer moment.